Hi, Cheryl. Hi.
Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, Cheryl. Thanks very much for joining us. We had some technical glitches there before we come on, as always on my end, of course. So tonight, everyone, I have the absolute pleasure of having Cheryl Lessel of the Happy Squad, Happy Thought Squad, with me. So Cheryl, it's just to give a little bit of context. So we'd actually bumped into each other at a networking event. And it's when I was actually walking out the door, and I'd heard a little of Cheryl's story earlier in the evening, and it was just your energy, Cheryl, and like how much thought and how much you've given to what is now your vision and your mission that absolutely captivated me, and I just had to connect with you outside of that. So I invited Cheryl into the hub, and we had a little cup of tea, and Cheryl's been following me as well and seen that Elle and I had been in some schools. So yeah, we're finding ways that we can potentially collaborate as well. But Cheryl, what I'll do is I'll hand it over to you just now, and if you can give us a little bit of an introduction, and then we'll go into the vision and the mission and kind of what's brought you to where you are now. So I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you very much. Well, thanks for having me, first of all. We got there in the end after a retech, but me and tech are not pals, so I couldn't help you there at all, Lindsay, but it's lovely to talk to you again.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm Cheryl Lessels, and I have recently launched a subscription box called Happy Thought Squad, and it's to support the emotional well-being of girls. I was a primary teacher for 22 years. I left school a couple of years ago, and when I left school, I just wanted to chill out. I just wanted to breathe and catch myself. Just breathe and take time for me for a wee while, because it's quite an intense job, teaching and being involved and all that kind of stuff. So just wanted to breathe, and then got a wee idea about maybe thinking about how I can still use the skills that I've got as a teacher in a different way. But the reason Happy Thought Squad came about was really because my own daughter experienced anxiety and panic attacks when she was younger. Yeah. So I get emotional when I talk about it.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
I know. But as a mum, despite all the nurture experience and the emotional well-being teaching experience I had, it was really difficult to watch her go through that. Yeah. And I found it really hard. And I kind of wee spark started, I can't be the only mum going through this. It's not just me. I knew it wasn't just me, but at the time it felt just me.
Yeah.
But I'm very conscious when I'm talking about Happy Thought Squad that I don't want to share my daughter's story, because that's hers, that's personal to her. So when I'm sharing, I'm talking about my journey, Lindsay, rather than Abby's.
Absolutely.
So that's where I'm coming from. I'm coming from as a mum who has experienced anxiety through the eyes of a mum, but also I've got the educational background to understand what's happening to their wee bodies and their wee brains when they're going through that anxiety or that distress at that time. And so I started having a wee think and came up with the idea of a subscription box that would be like a toolbox. It's not a fix-it box, because I'm not a mental health expert. I'm a mum and I'm a teacher. But inside my box, it's got lots of different tools and strategies that mums and parents and carers can use to support their girls. Now, I know it's not just girls that experience anxiety, but that's why I've started it, because it was my own story with my daughter. So I want to get this product right and get it done well before I consider any other, gender or gender neutral or whatever. So I'm focusing on girls at the moment, and the tools that are inside there are, it really is just a toolbox that the girls can dip into and practice. They might not necessarily be experiencing anxiety or distress at the moment, But being able to practice tools like breathing techniques, like movement breaks, like mindfulness activities, whether it's crafting or reading or meditations or whatever, if they get used to practicing that, then when the time comes where they do feel distress or anxiousness or whatever it is, the emotion they're experiencing, they'll have that wee toolkit that they can dip into, and they can say, actually, I'm just going to take 5 minutes for myself and I'm going to go for a wee walk outside. I'm going to put on a lovely piece of music and just shut my eyes and breathe. Or I'm going to get a colouring book and I'm going to sit and colour and just be in the moment. So it's that's why I've started, and that's really what's entailed within it. It's a wee toolbox for the girls to dip in and out of. But also behind it is trying to strengthen the relationship between the girl and the parent, carer or mum, so that there's conversation that's able to happen there at the crucial times. And if they're practicing conversation, then when they really need it, there'll be more opportunity to feel comfortable in that situation, I think.
Yeah, and I think there's a couple of things that you hit on there, and then it's absolutely key, because when I was getting in, like, you do notice, like, and without me coming from a teaching background, with a lot of the work that I've done, like, holistically, our bodies go through phases and changes every 7 years. And I think what captivated me more so with your story, Cheryl, was like these wee tools and techniques. And like, I didn't start on a holistic journey until much later in my life. And by the way, I'm still putting things in place as I'm going along. But you've hit it on the head there when you're talking about, like, for them to be able to recognize within themselves, like, you're habit stacking, aren't you? You're really going, right, having that kind of emotional awareness to say, this is coming up in my body. I'm going to take 5 minutes out, and mum or dad, when I'm ready to come back and speak to you, we can do that. But the box isn't really just about them going away and like listening to music, taking 5 and doing breath work and stuff like that. There's wee activities that are in there that also help bond the relationship more between parent and child. So what are some of the activities that are in the box, Cheryl, that allows for the kind of the bonding aspect?
Yeah.
Because I find it particularly difficult, like even with my teenage girls, because overnight, like, they come downstairs completely different people.
Yeah.
And I'm going, I can't remember doing that.
Yeah, I know. It's so difficult.
I think I handled it in a really different way. Not necessarily healthy either.
Well, it's a learning process, isn't it?
Yeah.
And we don't always get it right. We don't always get it right, and acknowledging that's important,
Yeah.
But the relationship strengthening is definitely a core feature within my box, and probably one of the most obvious ways that happens is through the conversation starters. So each month has a different theme, but within every theme, there will be a conversation starter card. And along with the conversation starter card, there's a couple of cookies, one for mum or parent and carer, and one for the child. And there's a tea bag for mum and a hot chocolate for the wee one.
Lovely.
They can swap, there's nothing to say that the young one can't have the peppermint tea or whatever kind it is. But really, I love what you're saying there about habit stacking. It really is practicing talking to each other. So the conversation starter card is not necessarily, the questions that are on there are not necessarily about emotions. It might just be, what's made you smile today? Or if you and I could have a day together, what would you love to do? But it's practicing back and forth, actively listening to each other, repeating what's been said just to show that you're listening, and practicing those skills so that when they come downstairs, like you're saying, and their hormones are going absolutely haywire, you've got that practice banked. So that, yes, it's not going to be easy. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but you've got that habit, into the habit where you're able to talk a wee bit easier, and the door's a wee bit further open than it might have been had you not had that practice together.
I think what's really key is in a world like today, Cheryl, where we are overly consumed by, whether that be just parenting, whether that be by just living, like school stuff, trying to like it coming for like a working family, like keeping everything together. It's being able to take that moment to actually be still and be present with your kids. And I know it sounds crazy that, like, but if you had that little something, and by the way, like there's times that I'm still not present because I've got 1,000 other things that I need to do as well. But if you're setting aside, and that's part of the habit stacking bit is actively setting aside that time where it is just one-on-one.
Yeah.
And it's just the two of you, and having that wee toolbox that's there for you to go to give you the tools to start to build a different relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it really is. It's really important. So things like the conversation starters are there to strengthen relationship. There's other activities in the box, like some of the sorry, my brain's going to be a bit mush. Some of the meditative activities that are in there
I
can be
struggle with that
done
word
together.
as well.
It can be done together or on their own. You know, it doesn't have to be done together, but the options there for mum and daughter, or parent and carer and daughter, to do it together, so that, you know, I kind of do, when I started, I kind of do yoga to save myself. And that would be another way of building the relationship, because, you know, if I'm trying to do downward dog and I'm keeling over, my wee Ian's able to do it no bother, you know, that is showing you that you're prepared to make a mistake and in front of her, you know,
and
that
learn.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's monkey see, monkey do, isn't it? It's very much like that.
Absolutely. So there's lots of activities that can be done together within the box.
Or individually. What I found as well, and something like, this is massive, Cheryl. This isn't something that's really quite small, because I personally feel like, for whatever my personal journey, and what I'd experienced as well, was not being able to kind of put my emotions in place and not actually be able to have that bond and share in a kind of safe and nurturing environment how I was feeling. And I think that's where kids kind of struggle a little bit. So instead of kind of opening up, and like what you're saying, and this is what's key about the conversation starters, it's opening them up and giving them that safe space and that time to actually share, and for them to maybe potentially not so much attached to the feeling, and like, instead of saying like, I'm sad, or if they say I'm sad, it's being able to have the emotional awareness and intelligence to turn around and say, well, it's not that you're sad, it's that something or someone has made you sad. Tell me about that. What is it that's kind of happened and going on, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, naming and recognizing the emotion. There's a lot of work in school does that, you know. So there's a lot of work that happens in school, but not so much at home. So, you know, what does being excited look like? Well, it might be tingles in your tummy. You know, what does anxiousness look like? It might be tingles in your tummy, you know. So it's been able to, the tools within the box are supporting the naming and the recognizing of the emotions as well. So, for example, there's a wee mood tracker badge in the first box. And there's actually two boxes. I should have said that, Lindsay. Sorry. There's one for 7 to 12-year-olds and one for 13 to 16. And they've got similar products, but they're age appropriate. So they're slightly different. But there's a mood tracker badge in each of them. And basically it's just I think I've got it here actually. Aye. So this is the older badge. So it's just like a wee social battery. And and it moves.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it does move. Although it's like a wee like an earring back on it, so I'm not going to move it just now because it's kind of stuck in its position. But you can slide it. Cool. It's super cool. So you can slide it up and down.
Even for me, with my husband, I can kind of slide it over the red bit, and you'll be able to go. Oh.
I know. So you can use colours to represent how you're feeling, or there's wee emojis on there as well. So, you know, there's lots of different wee things in there to support the naming and the recognising. So if your wee one's not able to actually say, I'm feeling really sad, they could maybe slide along to their wee badge, whatever represents sad for them.
Yeah.
And colour charts, that kind of thing, because, you know, everybody's colours, how they represent to each other is different. You know, blue might be my favourite colour, but somebody else it might be sadness. Or red might be love, but then it could also be anger. So, you know, it's not stereotypical, the colour. So it's all the wee tools are really open up to discussion, really. It's just a toolbox to start talking.
I think it's a toolbox, like what we kind of touched on there, like for raising emotional awareness. By the way, not just even in your kids, but even like within yourself. There's some really good tools in there to help even just the individual parent.
Yeah.
So Cheryl, could you walk us through, because you've obviously got first-hand experience with all of this, what are kind of some of the signposts that you would say for parents to maybe look out for, where kids' emotions do seem or look like? Now, this might mean that it might be common sense, but I want to have this conversation anyway. So what are the kind of red flags that you would say is there, like a top 3, top 5? What would you say is something where you feel that your boxes will help people with?
Yeah. So obviously everybody's different. So what I'm going to say might not be applicable for everybody. But you know your daughter the best.
Yeah.
So if you notice a change in behaviour, so for example, you know, they are really teary, they're saying they've got an upset stomach, they didn't want to go to school, they're not sleeping very well, they're getting picky with what they're eating, they just want to be in their bedroom the whole time. Now that's typical teenage behaviour.
So you're going, is this where I step in, or are they just going to tell me to do one?
So there's lots of different wee things, but any wee change in behaviour that you notice, that might be the time where you might you know, start to look for things that you could put in place to support to support your girl. But I can't tell you it's going to be X, Y, Z, because for everybody it's different.
It's different. Yeah. So I think it's the isolation piece, which they tend to do when they get a wee bit older anyway. But it's even just like what you're saying, if they're normally quite bubbly and then they're quite sad, or if they're having like outbursts. But I wouldn't necessarily say that integrating something like your subscription box like as a tool, I think that's something that can be enjoyed outside of regulation, and actually just as a toolbox to allow people to start to get into the flow and open up the space. And by the way, resonate with your kids differently as well, because I think something that shines through in everything that we discuss on here is there is a real concern in adults in particular in showing vulnerability. And it's actually, but allowing your kids, it's like that saying, it's okay not to be okay, but talk to me and tell me about it. So for me, I think your subscription box there, it's not necessarily just as a tool for a reactive, it's something to be proactive.
Absolutely. It's almost like I'd love it to be a preventative.
Yes,
you know?
yes,
Although it's not a fix-it box, you know, I keep
Yeah.
trying to reinforce that. It's not going to fix everything, but it's just what you're saying. It's building habits so that if behaviours do change, then there's tools that you can dip into to support, you know, the dysregulation that your wee one's experiencing. But absolutely, I mean, the stuff inside the box, I would have loved when I was a wee girl. You know, there's always going to be a crafting activity, because crafting's great for mindfulness and it just lets you be in the moment. There's always going to be stickers, because I'm a primary teacher and I love stickers. Who doesn't love stationery? So there'll always be stickers. There'll always be a fab pen. There'll always be some kind of book, because you know, reading is really important. And whether your wee one can read or not, you could read it together. You can share the stories together. So, but they're not always going to be novels, and they're not always going to be self-development books. So there's going to be a different slant on each book that's in the box, depending on what the theme is. So, for example, in the first box, there is a journal. So there's a Happy Thought Squad journal in the younger age box, and then there's an older version called Wreck This Journal for the teenage girls. And so in the first box is a bit meatier, I would say, because people have the option of just buying one box. They don't have to subscribe. And I really wanted to have that one box to have a broad range of different tools for them to use in case they only ever buy one. So there'll always be a journal in the first box. And then my box that's going out this month, it's actually, the theme is Be Inspired. And so the young lassie, I can never pronounce her surname, but Malala, the young lassie that was shot by the Taliban when she was 15 for speaking out against girls' education, she has written a fantastic book all about her story. She's so inspiring. You know, you just have to hear the story and you get tingles. You know, she was so brave. But she's written a book, especially for teenagers, and there's a younger version. So that's the book that's going in this box for this month about being inspired. So there's always going to be some kind of literacy. Yes, related to the theme. And I think that's important because, again, that's something that can be shared or it can be done individual as well. But it's broadening the experience. It's not just, you know, having a cookie and a cup of tea. It's learning about other things that you might not have been aware of. So yeah, I think partly because I'm a teacher as well, I know how important books are. You know, and again, it's great for mindfulness. You know, just sitting, getting lost in a story is such a wonderful escape. You know, we do it ourselves as adults. You know, you read to escape, to be somewhere else, to have a break. And so I'm trying to support that habit as well through the box.
I think it's absolutely phenomenal. So Cheryl, if people wanted to purchase your subscription boxes or even just your first box, where would they go to purchase that?
So the best place to go is my website, which is happythoughtsquad.com. Oh, there you go. Thank you.
There you go.
Fancy. So you'll find it there. There's lots of information on my website. There's a wee blog that I've started. There's lots of different statistics, different ideas that you can try. But if you go under the subscribe tab, you'll find the different options that you can buy. So you can buy a one-off box or a 3-month or a 6-month subscription, whatever you fancy.
Okay, that's great. So how long has the subscription box been up and running for now, Cheryl?
May the 27th, I launched just this year.
So it's just
So it took me a year to get to this process.
Wow.
I had the idea, and then it's taken me a whole year to get everything in place. And it's been a struggle because I've never done this before. You know, I've been in school for years and years and years. I've never run a business before. So I am on a huge learning curve. The tech, finances, you know, the whole shebang, the marketing, oh my goodness. You know,
I think that's where you strip it back, and I keep having to remind myself as well about the why. And I think this is where we kind of cross over into the inspiration and using that as fuel, because you do need fuel, don't you, to keep going. But it's a remarkable story. It's a remarkable story, Cheryl, in the fact that you've actually identified that there is a gap in the market, that there is an opportunity, but it's not just came from there being an opportunity, it's actually came from something that's really, really hit home with yourself and something that's been pretty painful. And I speak frequently about turning pain into power. So you've actually taken that and you've found something to give you, something to give back to not only you and your family, but also the world. And for me, that's a massive, massive thing, because it's not just about serving you. It's like using that experience in a positive way, and turning that into a positive story to go out and help loads of other people. That's a beautiful legacy, Cheryl.
Thank you.
And I do wish you all the luck in the world with it.
Thanks so much.
But I'm going to go into the kind of business side of things a wee bit now. And this is really for all of us entrepreneurs out there that have actually we weave together in ways, Cheryl, because through my own experience, that was what ignited a deep desire within myself to try and create somewhere for people, a safe place, if you like, for people to come and explore their traumas, challenges in life, some of their hurdles. And that's all fair and well, bringing that to the fore and creating that for people, and people getting a very nice end product. But in between that, the journey of entrepreneurship. So when you started out, Cheryl, walk me through your process. Was it Business Gateway? Was it then like, have you fell over 1,000 times, dusted yourself down and got back up? Is it?
Yeah, so one of my teacher pals actually sent me a link for a wee online business course that was happening last March. It was happening. So I thought I'll give it a wee go, because it's nice to keep your brain busy as well, isn't it? So I did this business course, and it was all about online business.
Yeah.
And I thought, how can I use? She kept saying, use what you know.
Yeah.
I think I've been a teacher. I don't have any other skill. A teacher.
Well, that's a skill. Teachers a skill.
I know teachers have got lots of different assets, obviously, but I've only been in school. But then she kept saying, teach what you know, and that's when it twigged. Actually, the lived experience, like you were saying, between me and my girl, and the lack of space for me as a mum that I felt was my motivator.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, how can I do it? Will I do workshops? Will I write a book? Will I start a podcast? But I really wanted something tangible. Yeah. Because as a child, I know that, hands-on learning is the best way to learn. And so I wanted something tangible. And that's where the idea of Subscription Box came about. And so I followed this 12-week course religiously, going online every week, and I've got about 40 notebooks. I love a notebook. I'm more paper and pen than tech, me. So I've got loads of notebooks with all the notes in, and it took you through different skill sets, setting up a website, not my thing. I've paid for that. Finance, again, not my thing, but I'm learning. The marketing, learning again. But I just knew that I wanted to do it. And so regardless of my lack of experience, I've just put everything that I've had, I've just put all my savings into it, because I'm so passionate about it. I've got a lovely product. It works because I've tested it. I've not just made it and think, aye, that's great. But I've had testers work with both the boxes, and the feedback's been lovely. And since my first box went out last month, the feedback's been great, and the impact. Actually, I got a phone call, I got a voice message the day after the box went out from my mum, who said the box landed just at the right time. Her daughter was 14, and the box landed that day. She came back from school, she had a hellish day, went straight up to her room, took the box with her, didn't let her mum open it with her, took the box with her. And her mum went up at 9:30 to tell her, right, it's time for bed. She says, just 5 more minutes. I'm just doing my rage doodling and I'm drinking my peppermint tea. And I was like, wow. My goodness. And so mum left me a voice message just telling me this story. And she was so grateful. She's just like, thank you so much. Her daughter would never have been open to anything, writing anything down. Having peppermint tea, she'd never been open to anything. Now, I know it's only a peppermint tea bag, but that wee lassie has chosen to have a moment of calm. So the impact so far, I'm absolutely delighted, and that's what's keeping me going. I think that's knowing that it's helping people is what's keeping me going. But my because it was for mums as well. I've got an online support group, but it's a wee Facebook group that mums can go in there and we can support each other. So it's not just me sharing, I think you should try this. But I'm inviting mums into this wee support group, this wee online Facebook group as well, so that we're there to support each other. And we've all got different ideas and different experiences, and it's important to know you're not alone. Lots of people might not contribute to the group, but that's not to say they're not scrolling through and taking ideas from it and getting inspiration or motivation or support in whatever way that they need to as well. So
I think it's a huge thing, Cheryl, isn't it? It's an absolutely massive thing. It's the sharing, and it's knowing that no matter what age you are, you're not alone. and in sharing that vulnerability with people and actually being able to have access to these community things, that there are actually people that are out there that are actively doing stuff to try and help people. And I think that's why I felt it was important to try and help get you as much more reach as you possibly can get as well, because I think that there's loads of people within the community doing absolutely magnificent things. So at that, yeah, I've been using this platform to try and obviously showcase what it is that they're doing. But I think like what you're saying there with the feedback that you got, like the wee girl would never have tried peppermint tea, or even like the rage writing and stuff like that. For me, like since I was 22, I had a dream of Big Mama's house, and Big Mama's house is there. It's just, it's opened, but it's not opened yet. I think it's really key that we get to kids at that age before life gets a grip of them, and actually being able to arm them with things that allow them to really go and connect within themselves, and then communicate effectively about how they're feeling as well. I think honestly it would have a massive impact across all areas, absolutely all areas. My personal goal was to disrupt healthcare systems, was to disrupt judicial systems and educational systems, by the way, because when I was younger, I felt so isolated because I didn't learn the same way that, and I'm going, how am I finding it so difficult to actually take in like simple math, you know, or like with literacy, there wasn't an issue with it, like English and stuff like that, but like across the other areas. But so then I just become the rowdy one, and then I was a troublemaker in the class, and then I was shoved to the back of the class and kind of forgotten about and stuff like that. Whereas with all of these wee activities that you're doing, it's touching on like all of the different kind of learning styles, like the conversation, the talking, the taste, the drinking. So there's a lot of, for me, NLP that's kind of rippling through a lot of what you're doing. And I know that schools are making inroads as well, but I think their hands are kind of tied at a certain stage with how far they can actually take some of these strategies, because they need to make it so that it can kind of fit across a broader spectrum.
You're right.
Getting these boxes in the hands of the parents and in the house, there you've got that, like that ability to have a massive impact just between you and your child, not necessarily looking at the school to make the changes. It's looking at the parents to take accountability to help them make the changes too.
Absolutely, but not alone. You know, like you say, we're part of a community. We're there to help each other. Absolutely.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Yeah, I know. And there's a big difference actually from primary teaching when the children move up to secondary, because primary is much more fluid. You know, there's much more flexibility in terms, you know, I would always start the day with a check-in, some kind of check-in, some kind of movement before we even started, because if the children are not right, if they're not great, you know, if they're not ready to learn academically because they're not in the right headspace, then you could teach, or you could try and teach till the cows come home. They're not going to learn anything. You know, it's not going to go in because they've just not had that connection with you. They've not had a wee opportunity to get the chemicals going and get the chemicals flowing that enables them to then learn. And primary school's much easier to do that, whereas you go into secondary school and you're back to sitting at your desks, you know, and it's very academic, and it's XYZ at XYZ time, you know, and that's it, and you're in a wee box. Not always, but often. It's much more trickier in high school. And so that's why I've gone down to age 7, because if they can start really young, then absolutely, you know, we're back to the habits. The habits are in there, and they know what they can do to support themselves. You know, they're able to regulate then more often. So, yeah. But yeah, I've kind of varied away for the business question that you asked me. I'm basically on a huge learning curve.
Listen, it doesn't matter, because it's kind of went back and forth a wee bit as well. And the business side of it is all kind of, it's not the boring stuff. That's maybe, and I did say that's maybe a separate conversation that we can have on a separate call, because I think for the sake of today's session, it was really just to get your story out there, Cheryl, and share with everyone the fantastic work that you're doing, like from one person to come up with that idea, to see that, to feel it, and then actually move forward and create something with it. And by the way, I think your marketing is absolutely spot on. You've done an exceptional job.
Oh,
So
thank you.
So if anyone's want to join the Facebook group, so the community, would they just access that through your website as well?
So they can do it through the website, or if the links, actually, I'm mainly on Instagram. So my link's on my Instagram page. So if you just go to Happy Thought Squad on Instagram, you'll find the link for the Confidence Boost Facebook group in there. Yeah, that's probably the easiest way. Oh, that's lovely. A nice wee comment for Louise there.
Thanks very much, Louise. Thank you.
That's really kind.
There's something that I've even recognised as well, Cheryl, like even in my wee boy, like sometimes, see, even when we talk about getting up and getting ready, right? And if I was in my early 20s, I was up and I was exercising and stuff like that and getting my mindset right. But I was constantly going at, like, how do I better myself? How do I better myself? And eventually that kind of exhausts you as well. But see, even when they come back in from school, because I find myself sometimes as well, like, see if there's homework, because I'm the type of person I am, let's just sit down and get it done. And then you're sitting going, wait a minute, they've been in school for all the hours every single day, right? Where would you say is the best time from a teacher's point of view? I'm testing you now, a teacher and a mum, for to get your kids to do homework.
I would argue with the school that primary school homework is not necessary. The bairns work really hard all day. They need to come home. They need to decompress. If you want to do homework, play a board game. They're learning turn taking. They're learning social skills. They're learning communication. They're learning how to win and how to lose. You know, that is homework in itself.
That's a massive thing, like the winning and the losing. And we're blessed because Aaron's gran, like, she's like she does like sits and plays noughts and crosses and like everything, the kind of the box game and stuff like that, like pen and paper stuff, not even board games, it's hangman and stuff. So we're still that's still in existence. That's
fantastic. And that is all learning. You didn't need to be sitting down with a jotter or a worksheet. It used to drive me nuts. You know, my school stopped giving homework, actually. Some parents weren't happy. There was some people not. What we ended up doing was we did every term we created a grid of activities to do at home should you choose to do it. And it was things like reading a book together, bake a cake, play a board game, go for a walk. How many different colours can you spot on your walk?
So
things like that.
Blending in the mindfulness within that as well.
Absolutely. They need to they're working hard enough in the school. They need time to connect with their family, with their friends, out with a classroom.
And I think even as parents and as adults, equally, like I've actually put myself on my to-do list to take time out to relax and go to people. But it's so
important for your emotion, for your mental health, isn't it? You need connection with other people. Equally, you need time on your own. You know, there's
connection is massive, right? Because there's been a huge shift in just societal norms, and I think this is something that we spoke about, Cheryl, was kids going out and playing, like trapdoor run away, like, or footy, or kick can, or skipping, or
going out on their bike, whatever.
You just don't see it. And even in all these big, huge housing estates, like, you'd be expecting them to be in the summer, like, mobbed with kids out playing and stuff like that, but you just don't see that. And I think that's what's key as well. There are a lot of you want to keep your kids safe and them not getting in trouble, and then it's just technology's taking over. But actually connecting with people is like so key in your learning and development, isn't it?
Absolutely. Because all the skills that you're practicing, like the communication skills, the listening skills, you know, you're making eye contact with people, Your if you're going for a walk, your fitness levels are improving as well. There's a whole breadth of skills that are developed through connection. And yes, you can't argue that there's connection made online, but you need to think about your online space in like a wee neighbourhood, So if the parents aren't happy to let their children out in the actual neighbourhood, do they actually know what the neighbourhood online is?
Yes, it's the educational piece around that,
Yeah, it's not
so
just...
is it as safe as what they think it is as well?
Exactly. And that's hard because, my two, I've got a boy and a girl, and they're both so much more tech savvy than me. And so it's really hard as a parent keeping them safe. But there's loads of free courses online, ironically, that you can teach yourself, how to put in safeguards and how to have conversations. There's a brilliant website called Young Minds, and they've got some really super resources on how to support social media use at home. So there's lots of resources out there, but it's educating yourself so that you're supporting your wee ones with skills like connection, because without that, when they're in not the real world, but when they're adults and they're having to go to a job, they're having to communicate with customers, they're having to talk to staff members, they're having to talk to their boss, or they're leading themselves, they're being leaders themselves. How are they going to have the communication skills if it's not being practiced when they're younger? Because that's when you learn, that's when you make all your mistakes, through the whole learning process, and they have to be exposed to that in order to be successful within themselves.
And I thought that's something that I mentioned to you as well, like, 'cause when I was getting brought up, I always referred to myself as being feral. But do you want to know something? I actually resented that for a long time in my life, but in actual fact, it was probably the biggest blessing that I ever had, because I did learn a lot. But the world is a completely different place, and the landscapes are changing all the time. And I think for me, it's just, getting the messages out there to people to say there are groups, there are things that are available, and they can reach out at any time as well if they feel that they want to even try your wee subscription box, or even just become part of your Facebook group and part of that community, because I think it's really important as well that people just share, they share their experience, their lived experiences, because there's little golden nuggets and all of that as well that people can take away, even just to know that they're not on their own, and there are other people that go through the same thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So if there's anything then, Cheryl, so we're going to wrap up just now, but before we go, if there is any wee whispers that you could whisper into the ears of any parent that's listening, what would it be?
Just try your best to connect. Listen. Any opportunity that you get to talk to them is the biggest thing, I would say, because it's all about relationships. Everything boils down to relationships. And yes, it'll be difficult. They'll go through turmoil. You'll go through turmoil together. But if you could try and practice the relationship building through, asking them to make you a cup of tea, for example, that's practicing their social skills, it's practicing their, their life skills as well. But you're then saying, please, you're then saying, thank you, I really appreciate that. And then they're feeling valued. Yeah, so it's a wee cycle, so just talking, listening, and using any opportunity you can to strengthen that relationship is probably the thing I would say. Regardless if you do anything with a subscription box or not, there are hundreds of different ways you can do that. Like we're saying, getting them to bake a cake with you, even going for a walk to get the newspaper, or not many people buy newspapers these days, pint of milk, whatever. I know. But just try to use any opportunity, or to take any opportunity that you can, because it makes them feel valued. If they feel, that they're contributing to your day, or you're sharing with them how lovely it is to have time with them, or how interested you are in their day, what's been happening in their wee life, then that builds up their self-esteem, it builds up their confidence, and it
Yeah.
builds up their resilience, because when things get tough, as they absolutely will for everybody, then that wee relationship's there that you are able to support each other. So that's the thing I would probably say is the most important.
Okay, so listen, there's something that I wanted to share, and it's just with what you said there, because I think like being a woman and actually trying to be the mum, the wife, the cook, the cleaner, and there's men that actually do the same thing as well.
Absolutely.
But I think like when you're a working parent, even not a working parent, you always go around and you're tidying up and not doing. But even like chores, going back to basics as well, and having a wee chore list, because it gives them, it's confidence building, it's the contributing to the family dynamic, and
it's
all
giving
of that.
them responsibility.
Yeah,
and then they're experiencing success, and that makes them feel proud. You know, and that boosts their self-esteem. It's just a big cycle, isn't it? It's
I know,
big
but do
cycle.
you want to know? I'm one of those ones that's went about and kind of just done everything, right? And you just do everything, and but again, even as an individual and when I reflect back on a lot of how I've got to where I've got to, you're actually building expectations as well. So if we're constantly going about and taking care of everything and doing everything, you're not actually opening up the space to receive the help that you complain that you never get as well,
right.
isn't it?
Yeah,
so it's even just being aware of some of the habitual things that you kind of naturally do, and maybe even just taking a wee step back and asking for a wee bit of help, because it might actually help them in a completely different way. But Cheryl, listen, thank you so much for being on the call. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I'm sure you'll be on another one as well. But yeah, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thanks for having me. I love talking to you.
Thank you so much. Is there any comments? I can't see if there's anything that's coming up, but if there's anyone that's still to listen, thank you so much for listening later on as well. And if there's any comments, I'll make sure that I get back to people too. So thank you so much, and have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.